here with, I think the best way to say it is the one person who literally has made me do what I'm doing right now. And I mean that with every sense of the word. She's the queen of talk, whether we like it or not, in Nigeria, who has foot now in movies, interestingly, in production. I can't start reading her CV because it's just going to be long and take all of the time. But if you know her, you will love her. We miss her so much on television. Funmi Iyanda.
Hi.
Thanks for being here today. Absolute pleasure.
I'm always happy when I see you doing this.
Same here, because, you know, interestingly, two major milestones for me in media happened with you. So my very first ever live TV interview after I left that reality show, Big Brother, in 2006, happened on New Dawn.
Yes.
And then secondly, the very first live TV show I ever hosted was with you in 2013, January 1st.
Was that the Change Your Life one?
Yeah,
yes.
the Change Your Life one. First time I ever did live television. I think I still owe you an apology because I goofed so much on air that day where I was supposed to interview, I think it was Chibundo. Chibundo, and I did research someone completely different. Started off the interview with the wrong question. I was just like, now she's going to kill me.
But there's never wrong.
You know, of course, we kind of winged it and covered it up,
Yeah.
but it was, I felt so bad because I thought I had disappointed this my Egbo, and you know,
I did not
I
notice.
messed up the entire day.
And if you hadn't told me now
You would never. Now you have to go and watch to find out. It still haunts me till today. But it was a good way to sort of, because after that I started doing Rubbin'minds, literally a week later, and it was always playing in my head. Make sure you know what you're doing. But how have you been?
Good.
How have you been? And we ask you this every time. People harass you on social media constantly. Are you ever going to come back on TV?
You know, I think that people don't take me seriously. They just want to see me on TV, cross-leg, talking to people.
Because you do it so well.
I think it's sweet, and I really honor that, and I'm thankful that people have that fond memory of me in their minds. But that's done. There are other things to do.
Why is it done?
I mean, that particular, TV has changed to start with, you know, I mean, TV is not what it used to be. So, and for me, being on television was really about the issues that we were going to raise and being able to reach the largest majority of people around the country. And so with the fragmentation, it's not quite the same. And I just haven't found the formula, you know, that I'm attracted to. Because even television, for me, it was an accident. I didn't plan to be on television.
It was a good accident.
It was a good accident. You know, so I haven't found just the thing that I would like to do. Of course, also it has to make money.
Yeah.
You know, because art without power,
Yeah.
you know, is not sustainable.
Yeah.
So I like sustainability.
Yeah. Because you don't only left TV, you left Nigeria.
Yes.
Pretty much. You completely just left us.
I mean, people said, even at the airport, I mean, you have like customers say, Auntie Funmi, you left us. I didn't leave you.
Yeah, but you did. You literally did. I mean, thank God for social media. So we feel like we are still around you. But I mean, you literally left.
I didn't intend to leave sort of like that. And, you know, I didn't leave immediately after New Dawn or anything like that. I did a lot of other productions and things.
Yes.
And why I left at that time was because, you know, my daughter was going to be in school in the UK, in boarding school. And I had thought that, oh, you just leave her there and you turn around. It didn't work that way at all. I mean, she needed me more, and I needed to be there more often. And so I thought, why not start a company there, another production outfit in the UK. And I started Creation Television in the UK at that time. Later on, I moved that into Oya Media. So it's, I've always been with, and even in Nigeria, all I was doing was Nigeria. Even in the UK, all I was doing, I did How to Fix Nigeria, 2 years of that, 6 sold-out shows. You know, I did all the other series that I did. I've always, my heart is at home, you know, and now that my little girl is her own madam, I can now, you know how it
sort
is.
of move around again and do things.
You can now do things differently. Because you know that thing they say about women, I find that, you know, you can do a lot of things, but you have to focus, you know, on certain things at certain points in your life.
Are you ever going to come back?
To television, if I find the right...
To Nigeria, first of all.
I am back in Nigeria.
Okay.
I am back in Nigeria.
Okay.
I mean, I never left.
So we're closer to...
you know my house. You know my house. I've never given up my house. So yeah, now, I mean, yes, actually, I am more... So before it was more UK and Nigeria, but now it's more Nigeria and UK because we've actually started, you know, an outpost of the company in Nigeria. And there's actually really exciting projects. I don't want to announce it yet. You know, I don't talk until I'm done.
Young
until
girl.
it's done. I'm the kind of cook that likes to cook it all. And I say, come and eat now.
So production has really just stolen you, but you miss TV.
A bit, when I'm here, because I like the lights.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm here, I mean, something switches in my head. And I'm like, oh, you know, like that. But when I'm not there, I don't really do.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, because for me, TV is really about it's the issues. I have to find. For Nigeria, you know, I can be anywhere else where I'm not emotionally engaged. So if you put me on TV, I can do the talking head.
Yeah.
But for Nigeria, my emotions are engaged.
Yes.
You know, and I really have to find the right thing because, I mean, the issues with Nigeria are quite important.
Yeah.
You know, so I cannot, I mean, unfortunately, there are different ways to do television. Yeah. I am not a CC pancake.
Yes, which is what I want to ask now. I know it's a very controversial sort of issue because there's been so many rumors as to why you left television. There was a talk about you interviewing a gay Nigerian man on your show, and that snowballed into you sort of being yanked off air pretty much because you did something that was very un-Nigerian and, you know, broadcasted that live. Is there any truth to that?
That's not true.
Okay.
I did interview Nigeria's first openly gay man.
Yes.
That was BC Alime in 2014.
Okay.
The show did, in 2004. The show did not end until 2008.
Okay, but did that cause any issues that...
It did cause issues.
Okay.
I mean, it was interesting. It did cause issues. But, I mean, NTA and our people are not as draconian as we like to think that they are. Okay. I mean, I did get a slap in the wrist, and they did yank off. They didn't trust me with live TV anymore. So it had to be recorded and it had to be vetted.
Okay.
But the show went on for a number of years before I took a decision that I was going to stop the show.
Do you think Nigeria is in a different place now?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. I mean, there were many things. I mean, when I see a younger generation, your generation, and a generation even younger than yours, what they are engaging with now, it gives me joy. Because there are some of these things that when I would talk about them then, it was like, I'm so glad there was no social media then because I would have felt the full brunt. I only felt it, you know, like sideways in that regard. So I think that I think that Nigeria is ready for a lot more things than we give her credit for. Yeah. And what Nigeria is most ready for is economic development. Because I think a lot of the things that we kind of like have angst about have a root in just people not being able to express, not being able to live as well as they can. Yeah. And so all these other things are symptoms of a bigger issue. Yeah. And so the primary issue for Nigeria is how to organize our country in such a way that she would become prosperous. When she is prosperous, people can come and talk to me again. Before then, people are acting out of desperation and also out of trauma that we have suffered because of our history, that we oftentimes don't even focus on. The beauty of being away for a while is that I'm able to look at Nigeria from a distance. And what has done for me is given me a lot more empathy for all of us. You know, and it's all of us. You know, what we don't face up to what it means to have come out of, you know, I mean, you know, sort of like colonialism and then go into several decades of military dictatorship and all the upheavals with the war, and then come on into
very strong mental shift.
Exactly. Then come on into this grappling with democracy that's not quite sure what it is yet, and then not even having a robust economic base other than oil. You know, there's so much that's bubbling under the surface, and so I feel empathy for us on one hand. I also have no patience anymore for us. You know. Where we sort of like sit on the carousel and go round and round and round and round the same issues over and over again. I think it's time that we as Nigerians decide who we want to be. Yeah.
Something we're not really going round and round, and you touched on there, and is there's something that's going on now, especially on social media, with regards to a bill that's passed its second reading in the House of Representatives. It's sort of trying to regulate social media, but they say they're trying to curb hate speech or fake news is what they're saying, I beg your pardon. So what are your thoughts on that with regards to what government is trying to do? Because a lot of people are worried that that's how you start to stifle, you know, free speech, and, you know, it's almost like they're trying to sort of silence young people because social media seems to be the one place where people are able to air their views. What are your thoughts on a law like this?
I mean, it's not sustainable, and I like sustainability. It's not sustainable. Yeah. And also, I don't worry so much about immediate things. I worry about more long-term things, you know, for Nigeria. I think that on the first, people call it, a good friend of mine, Olumide, put it quite nicely when he said it's not really social media bill, it is a freedom, repression of freedom speech. And I particularly have a grouse with some of the people who are spearheading it, given that some of those people should be in jail you know, as to what they have done, and they have been caught on camera to have done. I think that this is a knee-jerk reaction from the quarters where it has come from. I think that also they don't understand technology. And so how do you want to enforce it anyway? Do you understand? Around the world, there's conversation about fake news, because it's not a Nigerian issue. It's a global issue that's been unleashed, you know, by the technological changes that have happened in the past decade and thereabout. And so unless you understand how you actually program from the back end, you know, so that they're talking about contextual internet now as a way to begin to deal with some of these issues. So there are other ways to do it. This way, one is going to victimize poorer people, because at the end of the day, there are many, many laws in Nigeria. You know,
which is what one of the senators even said. He said, we have laws for this already.
Yes,
why are we trying to create this monster?
Yes. I mean, it's attention, it's a diversion of our attention from what is more important. Yeah. You know, and that's what I mean by, I personally am tired of talking about things that I've talked about for 20 years, you know, and basically I don't even engage anymore unless we're like, so what are we going to do? So what should we do?
So
how
what
do we
should
stop this? How do we stop? Well, it's quite clear in the laws what needs to be done when there's a law that's been passed that the majority of the people are not in agreement or in support for. I think that there should be different groups of people who will mobilize against the law, who will march against the law, who will stop these people. You know, at the end of the day, for politics, particularly in a democracy, the people should be the ones to, you know, force their representatives to behave differently. And oftentimes, they need to see that the people are unhappy. And that goes beyond maybe tweeting about it, you know, because that's quite benign, you know. So, but on the long run, I'm also not as bothered. I think that we need to take a long-term view. This particular government is here now. We should be asking ourselves what will come next.
Yeah.
You know, and how do we prepare for what should come next?
You talked a lot about this generation now and, you know, what we should do. And you say you have no patience, which is what a lot of people say about, you know, a lot of us in this generation. Do you see the willpower? Because it looks like sometimes social media has made us very comfortable. You know, we can just tweet about it or hashtag things and just sort of move on. Do you see in us or in younger people in Nigeria today sort of the, I want to, for want of a better description, the Hong Kong spirit, for example, where they have been at it for 6 months now? Yeah. Do you see that in the Nigerian youth, where they can actually decide to unify and, you know, stand for something?
So I'll say to start with, when I say that I have no patience, I don't mean with the youth. Yeah. I think the youth of Nigeria, just the issues and just and all of us, including myself. So I don't mean it in that way. And the other thing I would say is that there's a lot. The youth of Nigeria cannot but be the way it is, because you are the result of your decisions of the past and how you are raised and the environment in which you were raised. And many, many young people of today were raised in a rather restricted, you know, environment. So first is to find a voice, to find a sense of freedom. I think that social media gives that on a cosmetic level. Further down the line, I think that there would be a time when the ox will be God, when the youth of the country will be like, no. You know, I mean, it doesn't, by laws of nature anyway, it cannot continue this way. Yeah. So there are two ways to it. It's either we take a practical decision, take charge of what might happen, change the narrative ourselves, or the way nature is, the way of things will take its course. Yeah. And I'm not hoping for that second scenario. So in terms of Singapore, I mean, I don't compare any society with one another. Their own issues are unique. Their history is unique. Nigeria is unique and different. But what I do know is that all human beings have a breaking point. All societies have a point where maybe they would not take certain things anymore. Yeah. And people have spoken over and over again about Nigeria not having that. But we forget that Nigeria is relatively young as a country. And Nigeria is relatively incohesive as a country. You know, I imagine that in some future to come, it will not be like that. And one of the things that would change that equation is economic liberation. Yeah. And one of the things I would like for the young people of Nigeria to actually focus on is not just the political change, but economic change. Because when people have power, really, I always talk about two things. Yeah. That if you don't understand the nature of desperation, you cannot speak on behalf of another human being. You know, so one of the first things to do is to remove desperation. And to remove desperation is to give people a voice and power. And really that means that they have money in their pocket to be able to feed themselves, to have homes and all of that. And I think that technology offers that opportunity, because one of the things I've noticed is that a particular generation doesn't understand it, you know. And so because it doesn't understand it, means that the youth could actually form a coalition in areas where they can empower. And when I talk about the youth of Nigeria, I'm not talking about the middle-class youth alone, because there's a lot of talking to one another in the same bubble. When I walk around the country, I see, you know, the underbelly of Nigeria is really the everyday people, the market women, the market men, the people on the street. Those are the people that needs to be rallied, and they also have technology in their hands. So there's too much attention paid to the political class. It's a small class. I think that the generation of people have to become strategic in how they deal with them.
Are you hopeful for Nigeria?
I'm always hopeful. Without hope, there's no life. You know, so I'm hopeful. There are times when I am in some sort of despair, but I'm always hopeful because, as I've said, I've taken a long view for everything. So in the immediate, it's like, you know, so I'm hopeful for Nigeria. But beyond hope, I'm also in the space where when I have the opportunity, I've switched to challenging instead of patronizing the young. You know, because the people who patronize the young is because they want to make them insecure enough to buy something off them, their products. But you know, when you challenge the youth, it's a different thing where you're like, you know, how's about you? What do you want to do about your future? I mean, every day I hear people talk about, oh, they say, but what about you? What do you say? What future do you want? Because I'm old enough now to see people who said the same thing 20 years as old men and women now. Time is an equal opportunity Mesaropa.
I'm a witness.
Yes.
I definitely agree. Okay, enough about Nigeria now. This life you've now chosen with regards to production and going into the movie industry, was it always a thing? Did it happen by accident as well, like you said with TV?
No. I mean, I've always, this is the part I try to correct, because people always, I dislike boxes, you know, because at the end of the day, the New Dawn that everybody knew, I produced New Dawn. I wrote, produced, everything New Dawn. You know, I registered my first company as a 24-year-old. You know, so I've always had these production companies to do the things that I wanted. And with stories, there are different ways to tell stories. So there are long-form stories, there are shorter-form stories, there are all different types of stories. So for me, I have always seen myself as a storyteller. You know, I also worked as a journalist. You've done everything. So when I finished, even New Dawn itself started as a magazine show. And then it was partly censored into the format that you came to know it, because I'm very adaptive.
Yeah.
When you force me into a corner, I will find a way around in that corner. So, I mean, after New Dawn, I then started doing documentaries. I did Ayo, I did Port Harcourt Story, Lagos Stories. I did the reality-esque documentaries, you know, Talk with Funmi. I mean, these shows, you know, were nominated for international award before they even started looking at Africa. They were not nominated in the world category. They were nominated in their own categories. So this is what I do. I took a decision in 2010 that I was going to go into film because I could see that the back end of television was not working. And I wanted to pitch the film at a particular level so that if you could make smaller, perfectly formed stories for a lot less money, and you could edge your bet over a long, you know, a number of slates, then if one or two of them was really successful, you will have the back end will be sustainable, if you know what I mean by that. Because I'd already done some work then. I realized that without the exhibition and distribution part being really vibrant, really powerful, and really big, it would always be challenging to be able to make money from films. So once again, whether it's films or tomatoes or pineapple or rice, our challenge is the economics of it. Yeah. And that's also why behavior sometimes is like crab, because the pot is too small. We need to make a big pot of stew for Nigeria. Fat, big stew. That's what we need to do.
Where to find your spot. I'm in here sitting with my Igbo, Funmi Iyanda, and she has a new movie which she produced, Working with Shadows. Pretty controversial, because it's a book, which you have now adapted to a movie. Tell us why you decided to do that, because the theme is about, I think, loosely, a married gay man, I believe, who was in the closets, and you know, things around his life sort of started coming out along the way or something. But just, I'm trying not to give too much away.
Yes, and the theme is about self-discovery.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, that just is an underpinning narrative. What attracted me to the book in the first, I read the book in 2009, Judy Bear's book. When I decided I was going to start making film, and I took the decision in 2010, as far back as 2010.
After you read the book?
Not after I read the book, I had decided I wanted to make films. Because, you know, my background had been mostly media, and media, what media does is give you information. And after a while, I thought that beyond information, we should go to understanding. And so you needed more, you needed longer, more considered, more depth, more context. You know, that's why I went into films. And one of the things I noticed really quickly is that there was such like a dichotomy between films and literature in Nigeria. There were a lot of books that have been written.
So many good books.
That are also being written, and nobody was looking at them. So the first thing I wanted to do with the partner I was with at that time, working, my production partner, was to option a number of books, and Jude's was one of them. So it wasn't just Jude's book.
So there's some more
there
coming.
are more other stories. And what I liked about the Jude story in the first instance is that I'm so used to seeing black people, and I say black consciously, but we do it also to ourselves, where when you see us in cinema, it's a caricature of the self. Is either over-exaggerated, you know, or over-worthy. You know, it's either they're saving Africa or they're caricaturing Africa.
Yeah.
And I just wanted a story that allows us to just be, you know, as everyday human, to be flawed, to be great, to be whatever it is that we are. And that story, it was a really quiet, beautiful story. I loved it immediately. And I thought I could visualize what it would be like on screen. So I spoke to Jude all those years ago, but we didn't start really working on it until much later. In fact, it was when Olumide Makanju at Tears, you know, who was the executive director of Tears, we had a dinner thing in London where we were talking generally about other issues. And I'd mentioned that one of the ways to change mindset is narratives and is pop culture, you know. And so he came back to me later and was like, sis, that thing you were talking about, which story should we do? And I was like, you know, working with shadows, and he's like, yeah, he knows that. Let's do it. And he's quite, Olumide is quite, you know, once he decides to do something, let's go, he's going to do it. And so that's how we started the process of making the book into a story. It's been an incredible journey. But
were you afraid at any point of acceptance for a story like that here?
No, I don't work like that. I work, because to start with, I knew that if we pitched the story right, the tone had to be right. So you couldn't do a story that was like hard and preachy and sort of like hitting your head with something. It was going to be a gentle story and a family story. When you watch the film, you will see. I mean, so a lot of people who saw the film were kind of like, oh, we didn't know it was going to be like this. Because at the end of the day, it's about what all of us feel. So for him, it was about his sexuality. For some people, it's about other things. Yeah. There are many, many ways in which society dictates who we should be. In fact, there are many ways in which even the country we live in dictates who we should be. At some point in our life, you know, that thing, that noose around our neck, it gets too tight. And the person is bound to be like, enough now, enough. Yeah. So that's what the story really is about. It's a story about love and our family. And it's not just the story of Adrian, but it was also the story of his wife and how he came, and the story of their family. You know, and when people watch it, they could see their families in it. I mean, Ozzy was very important to find the right actor to start with, because he was going to carry the weight of the film. Even when you read the book, you see that this is really a story about. And I wanted to find somebody who was really, you know, masculine, so you don't see it coming. That sort of thing.
So it sort of throws you off.
So it was, I mean, it's been gratifying. I mean, people tell me about, you know, will Nigerians accept it? The people who saw it at the cinema were open to it. I am hoping, because in London, when it premiered in London, there was good acceptance to it. There are conversations already going on there about, you know, more international showing. But for me, I really want Nigerians to see it.
Did you have issues with cinemas accepting it?
So we're still in talks. In the UK, it's not a problem. There's already conversation going on, and, you know, we will announce when it's ready. But Nigeria matters to me. I really want my own people to see these things. And also, going beyond that, I'm really frustrated when we say all the time that, oh, this is how things are. You know, a lot of the things that people tell me, this is how things are, I was there when it started. It wasn't like that before, some of it. You know, and we need to get to a point where we determine, if this is how things are we happy with how things are? And I'm not talking even just about that, you know, as a sub. I'm talking generally. You know, so there's too much fixation on yekpain. I call it yekpain. I look at my life, oh, see me, oh, God save me, blah, 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 blah. There isn't enough conversation about this is who we want to be and this is how we're going to get there. And this kind of narratives, for me, is a contribution to people coming to that point where we're like, man, I beg. You know, we don't want it like that anymore, because it doesn't serve us. Because what is the point of life if you cannot live fully, either as a person or family or a nation. So for me, all the things I do actually always have that. And I saw my sister Ego talking earlier, whom I must work with, you know, about comedy, about comedy. And I'm like, yeah, even the comedy we can give them, because Nigeria has this dark, dark comedy. It's just the way we do it. I mean, every day you read the newspaper, it's like, make this thing, yeah, that sort of thing.
Like, this can't be real.
This cannot be real. And it's not true that even those stories, we cannot use them to tell ourselves hard truth, even whilst we are laughing. And I also understand why people want to laugh. Life is hard. They don't want to come back from traffic and then sit down and be looking at, this is how the Queen's mother died. You know, they want to see, they want to laugh. But it is possible to marry comedy, you know, and social justice and social values. It's possible. And all of this, we will get there. I'm excited about the new generation of filmmakers coming out of Nigeria. And I talk to them, not just the ones in Nigeria, even the ones in other parts of the country. They want to do a lot of things. And I think that there would be a new exciting wave of cinema from Nigeria because even internationally, things are changing.
I notice you've not used the word Nollywood. Do you have an issue with that name?
No, I have a lot of respect for Nollywood. I went and saw, I enjoyed Ramsey Noah's enjoyment of
living in bondage.
He enjoyed himself.
With his interesting Igbo language.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I love that is such a quintessentially Niger film. You know, so I mean, I think that Nollywood is something to respect. It's a child of circumstance. Came out of the Nigerian spirit where we couldn't do proper films as we should do. You know, but at some point we need to do more. And even the problem that people have with Nollywood is not that people don't know what to do. They know what to do. There isn't enough. The soup is not big enough. You need to bake and cook bigger soup. So once again, in terms of exhibition and distribution, this country, in terms of the number of people we have in this country, we need up to maybe roughly, I think we did the calculation once, we need up to 20,000 cinemas. 20,000 cinemas. So that's the kind of work that needs to be. We're not even scratching the surface of it here. So we need, once you begin to have that, and you know, some people say, oh, the VODs will take care of it, you know, like the Netflix and all of that. That's not strictly true because you are not in control of it. You know, still at the end of the day, we determine the kind of stories that you are going to tell, which is fine. There's no problem with that. But then the volume that you need is not going to come externally in that way. You still have to do your own things. You have to do what the Indian film industry has done. Sorry about that. I have
sorry about it.
So what the Indian film industry has done, what the Chinese film, everybody else, I mean, people are fixated with Hollywood. Even the Scandinavians, what they are making, the Nordic regions, what they are making. I think that one of the things that would be nice is young filmmakers focusing not just on Hollywood, but looking around the world to see what people are doing, including Francophone Africa.
Looking forward to all the great things you're going to be doing. I mean, I like the fact that you say you've optioned some more books, so there's going to be more production coming from you with regards to film. Excited about that. But before we go,
things.
And other things, of course, which you say you're not going to tell us yet.
I will never talk about anything until it's done.
I might tell you next week if you're nice to me. But very quickly before we go, this is more selfish for me now. What would you say is the biggest, I don't want to use the word mistake. Do you have any regrets, I want to say, from your time on TV, in broadcasting, things that maybe you wish you had done differently? So, as a lesson to me, people who are trying to be, you know.
So generally, I'm not one for regrets. Because oftentimes, I always give the example that, you know, there are parallel universes. And this is the universe I'm inhabiting right now. So I cannot extrapolate for a parallel universe. And a lot of the decisions we take at any given time are also a result of the circumstances that we find ourselves in. So generally, as a rule, I don't do regrets. However, what I would say differently is that I would have paid more attention to the back end.
Okay.
So
that's what something we need to do more.
Yes, I would have paid more attention to the back end. I would have, how shall I say it now? I would have been a little more patient, even with the platforms that I was working with. I would have taken anything that's thrown at me, I would have taken a longer time to react.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that instead of, make sure that my reactions are not emotional, although emotions are important.
More rational than emotional.
I look at my emotions and I understand what they're really trying to say to me. And I also look at people. Generally, when people do, one of the things I've realized with time is that we're all deviant, you know, and we're all flawed. You know, so sometimes when people do things that seem not to be in my own best interest, I want to understand what is really what is really at the bottom of it. What do they really want to achieve, so that I see how to get around that, you know, before I decide that, okay, this person cannot be dealt with in that regard. But generally, yeah, I mean, you are doing well. Yeah. You know.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to ask you all sorts of questions. I said,
please,
let's take over your interview.
Thank you very much for being here today.
Yeah, don't touch me. Don't
Full circle is fine. Full circle moments. I finally interviewed you back, but it's great to be here. And looking forward to the movie in the cinemas when it does happen. Thanks for joining us. Like I always say, you can follow the conversation on Twitter at rubbin'minds now is the handle. Use the hashtag rubbin'minds when you're tweeting at us. Have a great Sunday. I'll see you next week. Now it's time to show